Well, everyone, it's time for us to go and take a look at the iPhone 16 and compare it against the iPhone 15 Pro's camera and see which particular camera is a better one for you. Now, first thing I would definitely tell you is that when it comes down to both of these, right, the thing you'll always have to remember is that last year's Pro model will almost always be better than this year's standard base model. And that's the thing that I've noticed every single year. However, there can be some differences in image processing with chipsets, with the new phones coming out, the lenses are different. So there could be some advantages where sometimes the current generation might look better than, the last year's Pro model as well. But I would say on average, the feature standpoint, the capability, that's usually how it goes. Now, I want to hit on the hardware before I show you some of these basic photos I took. Number one, the systems are a little bit different. So on the back of the iPhone 15 Pro, you were getting a triple camera setup, a main, wide angle lens, an ultra wide camera, and a telephoto lens. Whereas on the iPhone 16, you're getting a 48 megapixel fusion lens, then a 12 megapixel ultra wide camera. So you were lacking out on the telephoto lens on the iPhone 16, which is kind of unfortunate, but you still get a lot of zooming in inside of the iPhone 16. Just to give you some capability, on the iPhone 16, you're able to have 2x zoom, which gives you like that 10x, zoom kind of when you're zooming in. Whereas on the 15 Pro, you're able to get 3x zoom, aka that like 3 times, I think it's like 15x that you're able to go in. So that is kind of an advantage on something like the iPhone 15 Pro. You're able to do super high resolution photos on both. You have the next generation portraits on both, macro photography on both, 4K at 60 on the front and the back that you can film in, spatial photos and videos, and the latest generation of photographic styles versus photographic styles on the 15 Pro. But relatively speaking, they give you the same type of capability. The only main difference I can think of maybe is that you are getting that camera button on the iPhone 16. So that is an advantage on the iPhone 16. To be honest, I'm not really even using it that much. I think it's a cool feature to have, but I'm not even that big of a fan of it. And, I haven't really used it that much. So I think that's probably one thing to keep in mind there. But beyond that, it's not the biggest difference in the world. And I definitely do like both these phones, from a camera standpoint. So now let me jump into these photos that I've taken. Now on the left side, we will have the iPhone 15 Pro photos. On the right side, we will have the iPhone 16 photos. And you can even see right here, the way these photos are taken, the way they're looking like, it's almost, it's very interesting. Now, I took these photos the exact same time. I took them basically, right next to each other. And also I took them basically in the same daylight, same conditions. Live photos were turned off, same photo megapixel count, everything like that, the highest of the highest I could take, that's what I took. Now, one thing I noticed is that with the 15 Pro right here, I tapped to focus on this part, right? This is where I was tapping to focus in on. The 15 Pro did I would say kind of a worse job at trying to keep this in subject, right? I wanted this to be in frame and it took me multiple times to even get it looking like this. I don't know why. The 16 was pretty much instantaneous and I really like that a lot. So the 16, when you're focusing in on a subject, this is macro mode turned off. I think the 16 did a much better job here of keeping this in focus, where the 15 Pro didn't really keep it in focus. I also think in the background, if you kind of take a look right here, one thing that I have noticed that the 16 kind of does, it did a little bit of a better job here, is that it sometimes clips out some of the subject that I want in a photo. I've noticed this in portrait mode a lot. It looks like both of them kind of did it here for the most part. If we go and take a look at like this particular flower, right here. So if we're zooming in right all the way, you can kind of get the idea, in my personal opinion, that something like the iPhone 15 Pro, like this type of camera, looks a little bit more bright. Like this is a brighter type of lens when it comes down to it. Whereas on something like the iPhone, 16, in general, I think it kind of did a better job at kind of evening out the tones and making nothing like really blow out or go like super crazy. So I think this photo on the iPhone 16 Pro, or the standard 16 actually, looks pretty good. Even on the background, you can see it's a little bit less bright. Now, I usually like brighter photos, but in a case like this, I feel like the photo was way more even on something like the iPhone 16. So you can kind of see that for yourself right here if I kind of look at it right here. I think for me personally, the photo on the right looks even more toned out than the photo on the left. But it's interesting how these two photos can kind of give us like different impressions throughout the day. Like it looks like these were taken at 2 different times of the day, when in reality they were taken like side by side. So that's kind of that photo. Now, on top of that, when you take a look at this photo right here, you can see for us, this is just a standard photo of the sky. Nothing crazy, nothing super insane going on here. However, when you kind of look at it again, the iPhone 15 Pro, I would say from this particular standpoint, does a better job at keeping the photos more bright, Whereas on the 16 Pro, it kind of darkens the image a little bit more. Now, if we go and zoom into like this particular area right here to these trees and this particular area on the iPhone 16, let's go and see what we see. Now, in my personal opinion, right, if we're looking at both these, to me, it kind of looks like the 15 Pro. These photos, like I'm able to see the leaves a little bit more. I feel like I'm able to get a little bit more like color into the photo on the iPhone 15 Pro. The 16, on the other hand, looks a little bit, I don't want to say dull, it just doesn't look as punchier, I would say, as the 15 Pro here. And that might be because I don't know what it is. I mean, it seems definitely like a nicer photo for me personally on the iPhone 15 Pro. But the 16 still does a pretty good job with this particular lens as well. So from that side, I think when it comes down to these two photos, they look good and everything like that. But I think the 15 Pro probably wins here. Now, this next photo is of portrait mode. So this is portrait mode on both, right? Now, when you're looking at both these, photos of this whatever dog, you can see that from me personally, right, from just backing up, it doesn't look like there's that big of a difference, right? They actually look more or less kind of like the same type of photo, right? But when you start zooming in, right, and this is what I noticed last time, let's go and zoom into the ear. So if we go and zoom into the ear on both, right, if I go and zoom in right up here, you can kind of see, in my personal opinion, right, I've noticed this yesterday too, it kind of looks like the 16 series kind of clips out some of the photo a little bit more than it probably should. So you can see right here, it looks like more of the ear on the 15 Pro is more in focus than the 16, in general. So I feel like that's kind of an interesting thing going on here. If we take a look at the other ear, it looks kind of the same, but even then, like you can kind of get an idea that this seems a little bit more blurred out, like right here, whereas in the 15 Pro, it seems a little bit, tiny bit more in focus. And that's the problem that we kind of have, I would say, with the 16 series, is that it clips out too much of the side, noticeably more. It blurs out a little bit more too. It looks like here, right here, this is another example. They're both a little blurred, but you can see the 16, like this should not be as blurred out as it is on the iPhone's, 16. The 15 Pro does a better job at portrait mode, and I think this is a problem that Apple kind of needs to fix. It's a very, very strange thing. I don't know why it keeps happening, but that is one thing that I did notice. So when it comes down to the overall portrait mode, they both could use some work here and there, to be honest. Like, I don't know why it's blurring out all this stuff. Like, this should be in focus. But it seems to me that the iPhone 16 kind of tends to blur out, the 16 series in general, blurs out more of the background, blurs out the background and some of the subject more so than it probably needs to. So that kind of covers that up. Now, this is also another interesting thing. This is another case where when you're looking at the left and right, look at, in my personal opinion, how much more punchier the colors are on the iPhone 15 Pro. When you're looking at the iPhone 15 Pro, and these colors of the leaves kind of look a little bit more punchier than the kind of mute, kind of cold colors on the iPhone 16. That's kind of the best way I can describe it. The colors on the iPhone 16 are more cold, where the iPhone 15 colors or 15 Pro colors are more punchier, they're more vibrant. And especially when you're looking at these things, like I would say that in real life, it probably looked more like the 15 Pro than it looked like the iPhone 16. So again, these were taken the same day, like same time. So you would think that these two were taken, like this one was towards like the morning, this one was like midday. They were taken the exact same time. Now, I would say like there's not really too much else to say here, but that is kind of an interesting thing you'll notice here. Now this next photo, I always like this one because you can kind of see this tip right here. It looks like on the 15 Pro, I kind of misdid a little bit. But if you were to kind of look at it, again, I try to focus in on this part. It looks like the 15 series has a weird issue for some reason for not focusing properly. I turned off macro mode on both as well. But the colors, again, cold colors on the iPhone 15, on the 16, which actually look pretty good. They don't look that bad. But the colors on the iPhone 15 Pro are definitely more warm. And, that might be a nice thing. I would definitely say because this photo is a little more blurred out, there's not really too much else to say. But I do like the colors of the iPhone 15 Pro. But I like how the 16, it didn't take me 10 tries to go and try to focus in, and the subject didn't even look good at the end of the 10 tries either. Now on top of that, the final photo I wanted to showcase was basically my hand, and basically of just, and don't mind how ugly it is, and basically just how the colors kind of perform on human color. And you can see right here, if we go and take a look at the top right here, you can see my fingertips. And basically what we're looking at here is just how the colors kind of look on both, and I think there's about the same type of coloring. I don't really think there's that big of a difference. If we go and take a look at like the very end tip here, you can see that for the most part, if I'm going to take a look at it, it looks like the fingertip, for the most part, on something like the iPhone 15 isn't as, cleared out as something as the iPhone 16 Pro, as the 16, which is kind of interesting. So if we're taking a look at it right here, it looks to me that the iPhone 16 photo kind of looks a little bit more less fuzzy in a way. So it looks like the post-processing on the 16 did kind of a better job here, which is kind of interesting. Not so much on the iPhone 15 Pro in my personal opinion. So overall, to kind of sum up this whole entire comparison, I think both these phones are very good cameras. I think there's some flip-flopping here. I don't think there's like an obvious winner. I would say that the one that I like the colors the most on was the iPhone 15 Pro. I feel like the colors on that iPhone were very nice, but I feel like the 16 actually did a pretty good job. I like focusing in on subjects on the 16 when you're taking standard photos. It just is an easier experience. The 15 Pro did a better job at portrait mode though, that is something that I did notice. But overall, that's kind of how both these cameras kind of compare. If you have any other thoughts or questions, please let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.